Let us pray. Lord, help us be filled with your Spirit so that we might be fountains of good things. Teach us how. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Call me out upon the waters, great unknown.
Please be seated.
Please, please, somebody help me. I need help, please.
Hey, God helps those who help themselves. That's in the Bible. Look, besides, if you just try a little harder, you won't be in this situation.
Okay.
I mean, look, life is hard, okay? You gotta have faith. You gotta pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You don't want to be a moocher, do you? A moocher on life. Hey, I like that. Moocher on life. I need to write that down. Anyway, you get the point.
Well, I guess you're right.
Of course I'm right.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what. I'm glad I got here in time. It must have been Providence.
What's Providence?
Well, there was this guy, right? He was looking for help, and I helped him.
Oh. Well, I wonder if that was Jeremy. You know, because they just lost their job.
What?
Yeah, happened just yesterday, poor soul.
Oh, no.
Yeah. What's the matter?
I don't think I helped him at all. I mean, I thought he just needed some encouragement.
Isn't that a good thing?
I don't think he took it that way.
Why would you say that?
Because I just yelled at him. I mean, I told him that he just needed to try a little harder.
Are you crazy? How would you feel if you were in their place?
Look, okay, I meant well by it, all right? If I was in his situation, I would understand that.
Yeah, that's good, because the boss just sent me to find you, but you've lost your job too.
Way ahead of us. These guys are done.
Yeah. Okay. So, care and feeding of faith. So, how many of you like to be challenged? Well, okay, but let me ask you this way. How many of you has ever faced a challenge? Yeah, right? And we get challenges really on a daily basis. And why do you think that's the case? It's called life. Huh? So we don't get lazy? So we can learn stuff? Well, now, wait a minute. So is a challenge, is it always something that happens to us? Or is it something that we get started, that we initiate? Something that happened because it's our fault? Yeah. I mean, so what's the difference? If I'm facing a challenge, right, that's happening to me, as opposed to one that I caused to happen, what's the difference? Is there one?
It depends on why you call.
Yeah, motivation can play into that, sure it does. But at the end of the day, what we're working through is exactly what you said. We are learning to be stronger. We're learning to think differently. We're learning to be different. And each challenge as we go along really does have the potential to teach us something. And so that's why it's really important to pay attention to the challenges that Jesus is issuing, not just to the disciples, but even to the people around them. This is Matthew chapter 14, beginning with verse 13. So when Jesus heard about John, he withdrew in a boat to a deserted place by himself. When the crowds learned this, they followed him on foot from the cities. When Jesus arrived and saw a large crowd, he had compassion for them and healed those who were sick. That evening, the disciples came and said to him, this is an isolated place and it's getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go into the villages and buy food for themselves. But Jesus said to them, there's no need to send them away. You give them something to eat. They replied, we have nothing here except 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. He said, bring them here to me. He ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass. He took the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, blessed them, and broke the loaves apart and gave them to his disciples. Then the disciples gave them to the crowds. Everyone ate until they were full, and they filled 12 baskets with the leftovers. About 5,000 men plus women and children had eaten. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So, the frame for what just happened, the mindset that Jesus presents, not just from himself, but the thing he expects from his disciples and later expects from all of us. Compassion. How many of you start the day looking for opportunities to express compassion? How many of you sit around trying to pay attention to when those things present themselves to you? Because we have them every day. We have opportunities to express the same kind of compassion that Jesus seemed to have for the crowds. And I wonder if we're tracking with that. I mean, every miracle, every act Jesus performs is framed by his compassion for the people in front of him. And so if you're having a hard time finding miracles in this world, then look for demonstrations of compassion, because miracles are sure to follow. But the challenge to the disciples, even to Christ himself, was to share in that instance. And I wonder if sharing is something that really characterizes our faith, your faith. I mean, when you think about the ways in which you follow God, is sharing a prominent piece of how you demonstrate what you believe? Or are there always exceptions? Are there always kinks or exceptions? In the end, how we share also characterizes what we really believe about Christ and how much faith that we really have. This is Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. Right then, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead to the other side of the lake while he dismissed the crowds. When he sent them away, he went up to a mountain by himself to pray. Evening came, and he was alone. Meanwhile, the boat, fighting a strong headwind, was being battered by the waves and was already far away from land. Very early in the morning, he came to the disciples walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified and said, "It's a ghost!" They were so frightened, they screamed. Just then Jesus spoke to them. "Be encouraged. It's me. Don't be afraid." Peter replied, "Lord, if it's you, order me to come to you on the water." Jesus said, "Come." Then Peter got out of the boat and was walking on the water toward Jesus. But when Peter saw the strong wind, he became frightened. As he began to sink, he shouted, "Lord, rescue me." Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him, saying, "You man of weak faith, why did you begin to have doubts?" When they got into the boat, the wind settled down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped Jesus and said, "You must be God's Son." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So Jesus moves away from teaching the crowd and the disciples, and now here's the disciples learning about ghosts and learning about walking on water. And in the midst of this, Jesus again has compassion on them. But do you think they were really prepared for what they experienced? I mean, clearly not, because they were screaming. I wonder if you would do something like this.
See you soon. Woo, that's a view there, buddy. Winds are way worse than I expected. Talk all you want.
That's why the world is watching.
Till you get here. Praise you, Jesus.
Doing good. Looks spectacular. Very awesome, Nick.
Got a little end-to-end thing building, Terry.
You're 11 and a half minutes.
Nick is now at the halfway point of this walk.
Definitely a whip in that cable.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it, but you're still handling it fine. Doing fine.
Okay. You don't have to tell me how long I'm on the wire.
All right.
Lord, you are
Good.
everything. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Discovery Channel, for believing in me.
Little nephew's standing out there watching too. True artiste, I think.
I don't know about that.
But you take your time now.
I am.
What do you think? Well, wait a minute. Okay, why do you say he's nuts?
He didn't have a parachute on, one thing.
Okay, he didn't have a parachute, but he had the bar to help him with his
Yeah, he
balance.
should have started.
He should have
Why
even
did he
started?
think God that way?
You know, I wonder if the disciples felt that way about the bread. And I wonder if they felt the same way about the water. I mean, at the end of the day, what he did, it is amazing and it is crazy, but he didn't just get up there and start walking. He prepared. And he had help. There were people who aided him on either end of that cable. And you saw the little tags that helped to keep the cable as straight as possible, even though the winds, as he said, were worse than he expected. And in the end, what was he doing at the last part of the cable? He was running. I mean, after walking all that way, his confidence was so high. And the ground was getting below, sure. But even still, he could still fall. But he was sure that he wouldn't fall. And it shows that he didn't take unnecessary risks in this stunt. Jesus doesn't expect us to be able to do that necessarily. But the things that Jesus does ask us to do are completely possible. And if we feel unprepared for them, I'm sorry, but that is no excuse. Because the Spirit provides everything that we need to accomplish anything that God wants us to do. There's a place in the Gospel of John that comes up later where Jesus is talking to the disciples about the Spirit coming, and he says the Spirit will give you what to say. Sometimes we get into a situation and we don't know what kind of words to use or not use. Sometimes we get into a situation and we're not sure what action to take or to not take. But God will help us. It becomes a question of faith. What do you really believe? And how far are you willing to go in order to demonstrate it? Because the truth is, y'all, we really can walk on water. We can do things that are beyond what we know or understand. And God made us that way. Because we were not made to answer to fear, but to answer to God. And so whatever storm waters, right, may come your way, whatever you can point to in your life, what you can do, what you find impossible in your life, in your work, in your economic situation, in your relationships, in the conversations that you know you must have, but are afraid to engage, in what storms are you being asked to walk on the water? And as you do so, who are you trusting? Your own judgment? Your own knowledge? Somebody else's advice? Are you trusting in the God who made us in the first place? This is Matthew chapter 14, 34 through 36. It's the tail end of this entire passage that we're looking at. And it goes like this. When they had crossed the lake, they landed at Gennesaret. And when the people who had lived in that place recognized him, they sent word throughout the whole region, and they brought to him everyone who was sick. Then they begged him that they might just touch the edge of his clothes. Everyone who touched him was cured. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So there was almost a sense of deja vu in reading these last verses, right? Because we've talked about Jesus having compassion before. But I wonder, again, if we paid attention to when it happens. I mean, whether it was the individuals or the crowds, Jesus reacted. He chose to react with compassion. And the people in question, whether it was a crowd, the disciples, or Peter, They were all addressed in the same way. And so Jesus meets them where they are. Whether it's healing, or feeding, or pulling someone out of the stormy waters they're in, Jesus meets them where they are. Jesus didn't say to the crowds, well, y'all are going to have to prove that y'all have some faith before we do this thing. And he didn't say to Peter, before he helped him, I don't know, Peter, you gotta show me how much faith you have before I help you out. No, he helped first. The questions came later. And I wonder if that's how we practice our compassion. Or do we hold people hostage to our own sense of standards or whatever it is that we think they should do before they can deserve our help? That's not how it's supposed to work for us who say that we're following Christ. The help comes first. The compassion comes first. And in this passage, it bookends everything that Jesus did and said. And so, the care and feeding of our faith is not a string of achievements or badges of honor gotten on our terms. Feeding our faith involves being compassionate, sharing of what we have, walking on water, and seeking to leave folks better than how we found them, but to love them where they are. I know. Jesus had compassion. Go and do likewise. In the name of the one who keeps us from falling. Amen. All right, so Mandy is checking. Let's see if they're back, and they are.
Shake the
from what you've provided. Bless them beyond the good that they've been to us. And may we be blessings beyond what you've given to us. May what is given give rest to the struggles of many. Amen.
Let's stand up. We're going to sing together. And so, the care and feeding of our faith is not the string of achievements or the badge of honor gotten on our terms. Feeding our faith involves being compassionate, sharing of what we have, walking on water, and seeking to leave folks better than how we found them, but to love them where they are.
So get up and take heart. Jesus is calling you. Go in peace.
Alone, be the glory.